Yeah,
Okay.
got it.
Okay, we're live. Yalla, got it. All right. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hello.
أهلا فيكم عسيرة. Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the time and thank you for joining. So it's a pleasure to co-host a live talk with you. Pia, you are يعني أنت من core team تبع سيرة. You are always with us on the platform. هلا بتعرفي عن حالك عن جديد للناس يلي أول مرة they are joining. Your background is psychology و you're also a teacher in a university, and we have the pleasure and the honor tonight to have a new speaker with us. نحن huge fans of her work of her passion of هيك how she's vocal دايما على الاشياء اللي خاصه بالدرماتولوجي وحتى outside dermatology يعني. Super impressive, Dr. Jinane. It's a big pleasure to also have you as our guest speaker tonight. كمان رح تعرفي عن حالك لأن في كتير ناس ما بتعرفك من الأودينس تبعنا يمكن، وفي كتير ناس بتعرفك مشهورة أكتر منا بس.
Thank you so much.
What's nice is the collab and bringing يعني medicine إذا بدنا نقول أو dermatology معنا الليلة وبيوتي وكل هالمعايير and psychology ونحكي ب how beauty is how we are redefining beauty، شو الchallenges تبعها، كيف حتى مشاكلنا والستريسرز اللي نحن بنعيشها بتترجم على جلدتنا وعلى جمالنا. It's a very very nice topic. We have a large audience tonight with us. قبل ما أعطيكم speaking slots وتعرفوا عن حالكم، أنا I just want to remind our attendees يلي معنا الليلة إنه you are watching us live. نحن ما بنقشعكم ولا بنسمعكم. The way you can interact with us and please do tonight يعني حابين نسمع منكم أسئلة. You can ask us your questions on the app and you can ask all your questions anonymously تما تبين هويتكم. So ask as many questions as you want, as bold as you want. نحن هون تنجاوب الليلة على كل ال concerns and we take it from there. So that's all from my side. The session will be أكيد it's recorded and it will be found on the app right after and also on our YouTube channel in the coming days. Pia, start by introducing yourself and then we let Dr. Jinane also tell us more about her so that we can kick off our subject for tonight.
So hi everybody, I'm Pia Tame. I'm a child and adolescent psychologist. I did my studies in the UK, came back to Lebanon with the kind of, the idea of wanting to really make mental health accessible للكل, to talk about these kind of discussions that people don't necessarily like to talk about, to break the barriers in terms of how to really be there for our kids, how to be there for ourselves as parents, etc. So I have my clinic, my private practice. I teach at LAU. I had the pleasure to meet Sandra along the way and kind of working with her in Sira to really raise awareness about very important mental health topics. That's me briefly. I leave the floor to Jinane and thank you for being with us.
So thank you so much for having me. Honestly, thank you so much, Sandra, for this lovely introduction. I'm very honored to be here. Just to tell you the truth, lately I've been very, very interested in talking about psychology and the skin. And really, this is like this is the perfect talk for me. So it's a huge pleasure for me to talk with you tonight. So just as a quick introduction, I'm a dermatologist. I'm a medical dermatologist. I practice at LAU, MCRH, and in St. John Hospital. And so I'm mostly a medical dermatologist. I am interested in psychology and the skin, specifically in psychosomatic diseases, specifically in diseases that have to do with the way you perceive your skin. And we see that a lot at the clinic. I'm a mother of 3 and a turtle. One of the children may barge in on us tonight. The turtle won't, and I hope. Yeah. And I, as a side thing, I have my Instagram account through which I think we got to meet each other. On my account, I like to first of all raise awareness on a ton of things that have to do with skin, but also I love to talk about you know, the effect of the mind and, I mean, this mind-skin interaction and how our psychological, you know, status, you know, affects our skin. So looking forward to your questions, and I hope, well, this is going to be, I'm sure this is going to be a fruitful talk.
So I think I think usually he was, yes, go ahead, Sandra.
عم بقول let's kick off with our first question. اليوم is going to be an interactive discussion. أكيد we will take questions also along the way. So نرجع نذكر إنه please سألونا أسئلتكم in the chat or in the Q&A. نبلش معكم both of you, and I would like to hear your opinion اليوم. Are you seeing a shift in how اليوم إن كان men أو إن كان women we look at beauty؟ هل عم نشوف أكتر fear of aging بمجتمعاتنا؟ و is it only women لأنه عنا هالستيغما يمكن أو هالتندنسي نقول إنه it's always women who want to look young and men don't really care. What are your thoughts around this kind of concept of beauty؟ هل عم يتغير اليوم and is it different from one gender to another?
Jinane, please go ahead. I'll add the psychology part after.
Okay, I will. So I'm just going to talk, you know, as a dermatologist at the clinic. I don't know if my teachers, when I was studying at UB, used to, you know, get this complaint of I want, you know, I don't think they had as many patients coming in asking to undergo, you know, cosmetic procedures or asking to undergo anti-aging, you know, procedures. So Anna, for me, I'm pretty sure that there is a shift with time, and I think that you know, social media now has, you know, accelerated things very, very quickly. The presence of filters, you know, but I think it started, you know, even in the 80s and the 90s when we were affected by pictures and tabloids and Femme magazine and, you know, photoshopped pictures and, you know, unrealistic ideals of how a woman should be. So this is when it, so I do feel that women are usually more expected to be, to fit a certain criteria. I don't know if in the you know, the Arab countries it's a little bit more than in the European countries, but definitely you know, we have expectations on how a face should be symmetrical and how the standards of beauty and proportions. And unfortunately, I think us doctors don't help, because especially now on social media you have, you know, doctors actively, you know, saying that these are the perfect proportions and this is the way you should glow and this is how you get a perfect face and this is how you get a perfect lips, when we've forgotten that really, honestly, like we're I mean, what is perfection? Honestly, like Anna, for me, I'm just, it's so tiring for me to remind people that we're not meant to be perfect, that we are meant to be ourselves, that I mean, it's the imperfections that make us, you know, unique. It's and when you're, I think 15 or 13 or 12 and you're bombarded on TikTok, you know, by these messages of you have to have you know, at 12 you're gonna have acne, your face is not gonna be, I mean, you're gonna have acne, you know, just, you know, disclaimer, 80% of people during adolescence, they're gonna have acne. So you have these adolescents coming in with a bit of pimples, you know, and it's you know, it weighs on them so much because they're bombarded with this message that their face needs to be, you know, glowing and neat and I'm ballora, which whatever, you know. So yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah. So Anna, for me, when it doesn't, when we're not at the pathological, imperfections are, I don't want to call them imperfections. Normal is normal. So well, I don't know if I answered your question. Now, definitely we're seeing men actually as well. So it's not only a question of women.
And I'm going to add to that, لأنه you tackled, and I work with children, adolescents, and I'm seeing that earlier in adolescence. Before it used to be 12, 13. Now we're seeing it as early as 9. And, you know, social media definitely plays a role, but the amount also, because of social media, because of all of these standards, they get also reinforced at school. And there's this 13-year-old who was telling me it took her some time to be able to talk to me about insecurities. First, it was because she has curly hair. So she spent so much time getting the perfect curls, and people who have curly hair know it's very difficult. And they were super curly. She spent 3 hours every day in the bathroom. Her parents thought there was something wrong. She was medically sick. And then we realized that she was spending 2 to 3 hours every night to have the perfect curls. And then it's because people at school were making fun, and the frizzes coming up. Then it was about one of her friends telling her that her upper lip was too small. They were 12. So I think because of social media, because of all of these expectations of, you have all of these products, like you were saying, this is to make you glow, this is to make you look like that. So automatically kids are internalizing the idea of this is how things should be. And people lose, especially adolescents, because they want to fit in, because they want to please, they want to follow what they think are expectations of others. They kind of lose themselves. And what we as adults maybe see as making them unique, as giving them this, extra edge of, but this is what's making you different. Difference is good, and the idea of it's okay, your face, it's gonna get better, but give it some time. There's this impatience also, I think, because we're living in such a fast-paced world. And then with adolescents specifically, they get into this trend of focusing so much of how things should be, the body, the face, etc. So I think that's a very important point that you're mentioning. And yes, boys, we're seeing that as well. I think we're going to talk in a bit about body dysmorphia, but a lot of the time it's things that they cannot change. Some kids are getting bullied because they're short. So physical appearance becomes such a big thing, and then we start really picking into the little details. So I think it's a very important thing to kind of focus on when it comes to adolescents, parents as well, for them to know what might be going on in their minds.
I just wanted to add something. When you talk, Kamina, about adolescents, there is something that I think it's not only this generation or the generation before, but even our parents' generation, when it comes to facial hair, because guys, we're Mediterranean women, and our population is natural. I mean, we're not European, blue eyes, blonde hair, no facial hair, no apparent facial hair. You have adolescents coming in with a huge psychological impact of what is normal on their face. We have this, what you have. I mean, I'm not talking about the pathological. Again, Honi, let's make a very clear distinction between when somebody has hirsutism, which is actually, a thickening of the hair that is caused by abnormal levels of a particular hormone in your body, and it can come with polycystic ovary syndrome, etc., etc. But we're talking about regular, what we call hypertrichosis, meaning that there's more hair that you have longer hair, let's say, on your face than you would expect, or than you are used to seeing. But we're Mediterranean, so this is as part of the brackets of normal, and this causes a lot of sadness, a lot of. I'm talking about myself when I was an adolescent, and I don't now when I look back at that, and when I look at my children, and I think this is not the way I'm gonna have them, live that, because you can't fight your every single thing in your body your whole life. That's wasted energy. I mean, you're supposed to grow healthy and try to navigate through life. I'm going into the philosophical a little bit, but Sanjad, when you see the amount of money and energy and sorrow and missed opportunities and insecurities that you have because of certain things that you get, like Anjad, this is why I'm on this platform tonight. I would love for us to normalize facial hair, to normalize body hair, to normalize wrinkles, to normalize dark circles around the eyes, to normalize, white hair, to normalize a lot of things that, okay, if you're bothered by them, then definitely there's something you can do. but don't obsess over them your whole life. That's what I'm saying.
طب من وين بتجي هالأوبسيشن فيها؟ يعني حكينا اليوم يعني اوكي سوشيال ميديا plays a role، بس هل في دور كمان للأهل يلي عم نقطع هالانسكيورتيز يمكن لأولادنا؟ هل نحن كأهل كمان أهلنا مورتينا إياهم، ولا نحن كمان في غير elements عم تأثر علينا؟ يعني كيف منكون بمحل بحياتنا we don't care about how we look، وفجأة بتصير كتير سنترال، وكل ما نزيد بالعمر كل ما تصير أهم وأهم، ومثل ما قالت جينان يمكن we obsess about it.
There are so many factors. Yes, social media, it's changing the standards of beauty. And now actually talking about, body hair and facial hair, there are all of these trends of, no, I don't want to مثلا shave my armpits as a woman. And, more people are coming out or shave my legs or these kind of things. So trying to normalize what's natural. Again, you might argue, you might decide what you want, but it's this idea that trends shift very quickly. And usually when we try to look at who is setting the trends, it's people that you tend to see on social media. That's to start with. It's not everything. But for example, talking about parents, yes, sometimes, and we see that sometimes, a lot of conflict between parents and their adolescents, where you have adolescents who want things in a specific way and then their parents see it differently, with parents trying to impose what they think is right, what they think is beauty. وهون عم نحكي in general, in the way that, their kids are dressing, in the way that their kids are behaving. So don't forget, in our culture, more than other culture, kids are a representation of the parents. They want to mirror the parents. So a lot of the time, without realizing, parents tend to project some of the difficulties that they have. They try to really idealize them and help their kids overcome them. حتى إذا the kids don't have these difficulties. Maybe a daughter مثلا doesn't want to change or doesn't want to kind of have this perfect look. بس إنه لا، ليه ما بنخليك to do مثلا your nose? We hear it so many times. I see adolescents when they're 15, 16, your gift at 18 is, whichever plastic surgery you want or whichever change that you want. So I'm not saying that it's necessarily wrong. This is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that it's becoming too quick of a solution. And sometimes it kind of reinforces too early in kids the idea that, maybe that's the way to go. So let's try to explore. Yumkin, the child is not that bothered by it. So maybe the child is fine with it. So why give this as, a gift potentially? Let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. Let's see how it's affecting you. For a lot of people, it's a sign of something different. I don't want to go into all of the potential factors. There are many. But sometimes when we feel, we cannot control other aspects of our life, when we're aging, we cannot fully control what's happening to our body internally, our energy physically, but the way that we look is one thing that we can control. And you have all of the stereotypes also of what comes with being young. If I look young, people expect something different. So there are all of these perceptions, expectations that all come together with the stress of society, with a very fast pace, with a very kind of, driven of I always do better. So all of these will affect also how quick we're resorting sometimes to these types of solutions.
Can I ask you a question, Pia? Actually, not. I just wanted to raise a couple of points. One, when it comes to skin, historically speaking, through the Middle Ages even, skin has always been a reflection of not only health, but also in somewhere morality. So a lot of times somebody who has a skin condition, let's say a leper, even in the Bible, a leper, so a sinner, okay? It does, the idea of a healthy skin tells you somewhere that you're a healthy person, somewhere that you're a moral person. So this is why, I think that people have this stigma, about having a clear and healthy skin. So I think there is something that generationally is very, very deeply entrenched in humans about this external envelope that needs to be completely clean. And even so when we're talking about hair removal, روحي أنظف تشيلي. So it's أنظف. Why is it أنظف? What's clean about it? If anything, you're going to catch folliculitis. But anyway, أنا عم بقول لكم ما تشيلوا إجريكم، اعملوا اللي بدكم يا guys. وأنا بشيلهم وما في مشكلة يعني، عرفتوا كيف؟ بس عم بقول إنه this يعني why are we accepting that نظافة is that, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing, when it comes to aging, it also brings into I mean, there is a very deeply entrenched fear in humans, which is the fear of dying, I guess. So I don't think you can, and I'm sorry, I'm going into philosophy right here, but I don't, this is philosophy, so you cannot dissociate the fear of aging from the fear of getting ill, from the fear of dying, okay? And I think here, this is why people, you've always had the fountain of youth. You've always had, even in Blanche-Neige, the evil White. Yeah, the Snow White. So the evil stepmother asking the mirror, who is the prettiest? She doesn't want to change. She doesn't want to age. And this is exactly, these myths that we grow up with. She's an ugly old sorceress, who gives her the apple. Really, honestly, I think we grow up with these, images of older means mean, means even something as benign as warts. The witch has a wart on her nose. Exactly. So all of that, these are myths that we grow up with, and it's very difficult to remove that from the head of a young child. And so this is why I think, especially when we're tackling that with it's not only social media today, but it's always been this way. I think it's always been this way. And so the question I have is, we are a society, that largely grew up in an insecure, political state, war, everything, going crazy all around people all the time. So no control whatsoever over what's around you. Do you think that striving to, look presentable, to control the way your face looks, to control your facial hair, to control your body hair, do you think it has to do with wanting some control over it, Amma?
Exactly. I think this is what I was hinting to when I was saying, in a society like ours, because we have no control over many different things, yes, we would look for control in various other places, and how we are aging, whether we are aging, what we're showing to others. There was always this, you don't ask a lady how old she is. How old do you think I look? This was always a question that we tend to use. And I think, yes, it is partly related to that. And again, this is where, Kamena, we can link it to eventually losing that sense of what's perfection and what's not. So sometimes when people fall into a routine, it's because it becomes a safety. I need to go get whatever, I'm getting to kind of keep a clear face, whether it's creams, whether it's other kind of types of things, the procedures that people have, but it's always this striving to look younger. And at the end, it becomes an obsession where we are not seeing ourselves for who we are anymore in the mirror. It's just this quest for control, that if I do it, I will feel better. And you stop seeing, and this is where the dysmorphia comes from. You stop really seeing who you are, and it's just what you expect to see. And this is where it could become dangerous. And this is why sometimes people don't realize, and some people call it like you're hooked to it. Khalas, when you start, you're hooked because you're always seeking more and more control. And again, it's not the case for everybody, but we just really need to kind of put these ideas out there just to raise awareness that sometimes this does tend to happen.
Here the question I have for you as well. I'm sorry, I'm asking the questions. Do you think it's a societal thing? Yani, let's say in Europe, we do tend to see people who, they don't really care. I don't know if this is something that's changing right now, but I know you go to France. You see more people with acne walking around. You see more people not botoxed, not walking around. Do you think it's because they don't have this urge to control everything? This is an Arab thing. What I mean?
I think control is just one aspect of it. You have other cultural aspects that are not necessarily in relation to control, because sometimes in other countries, in Europe, for instance, you do see it, but it comes with a specific kind of standing where you have expectations of looking in a specific way, or it's a sign of kind of, money. Some people do it. So I think abroad, because of their culture, there might be other explanations. I think control does play a role everywhere, but the amount of control that we're hoping to get will depend on the culture that we're in. So I think they're interrelated and you could not really separate it. And I think this is why we need to be aware of it, because if as a generation, now we lived in a very kind of unsettled and unstable society, maybe we are trying to control. And it's not just about, you know, staying young. It's also about the messages that we're passing on to kids who will grow up, so the next generation. So if we were taken by this control and we're not aware of it, we might be passing it on without realizing. So I think that's also important to mention.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
عنا أسئلة بركي بناخذ سؤالين و then we continue the discussion. So عنا سؤال من my 13-year-old wants to do laser. جينان لك, do you advise it?
For which part of her body or his body or her body?
ما بعرف بس إنه
or
in
their
general.
Okay, so let's tackle this one. So we were talking about, you know, hair removal. Okay, so laser hair removal for I mean a 13-year-old on the face, I would not advise. Okay, because you can run the risk of having something called paradoxical hair thickening. So the hair can become actually thicker and look worse. There are certain zones in the body that improve more on laser than others. Halla, when you come to somebody who's 13, who's at the beginning of puberty, who's going to undergo a huge surge of hormones, doing a laser is a bit futile. It's a futile exercise, meaning that you can do it. And I would suggest, you know, I mean, you can do it. I think Pia would you tell us better, you know, what to expect when you try to change the mind of an adolescent. The thing is, you're going to, like, for every, let's say, one session in an adult who's past puberty, you have like 3 sessions for an adolescent. And one thing that you should know, Kamina, this is like a kind of a lie. They call it laser hair removal, and people think that this is a definitive, you know, treatment. It's not. It's laser hair reduction. Okay, so Kamina, you have to, you know, you have to mind the expectations of the child. Okay, it's important.
And I think
so. One of my children has just I'm just gonna mute myself. Just a second.
But I think that that's really important, this idea of adolescents that need to be aware and know what to expect. And for you to tell them, you know, يمكن for you as parents, you managed to kind of do it and it was maybe easier and you saw maybe quicker results, but then as adolescents, what to expect. So medically, there is no issue, like Jinane was saying. I think it's more into, as a parent, to be able to mind what might come next. So بس تقدروا كمان تخبرون what to expect so that they know. I think that's important.
I'm so sorry. Yes, I heard you, but I'm so sorry. So that's there are solutions, by the way, that are, and I like it. For example, there's something called laser hair bleaching, which is basically the hair looks completely transparent with laser. So that's a good solution for the face, because it won't remove the hair, it won't thicken it, it will give the illusion that the hair is you know, is not there, and you have to repeat it every few months, and it's not a definitive solution, but that's a practical solution for teenagers who want something to be done. But sorry, Pia, and I know it as you know, as a fact. Even my patients, adolescent patients, I really you know, when they want to do something, they're gonna do it.
They're gonna go for it.
They're gonna go for it. Okay, so trying to sometimes, unfortunately, they do, you know, make decisions that are, I mean, that's the role of the parents, I guess, you know, to yeah. Well, but I mean, she can do it as long as she knows the expectations and the cost.
Can you hear me? كنت عم بسألك جنان، أنت بتعرفي مثلا في أشياء في procedures بيجوا لعندك فيهم patients أو things they want to do and you tell them no, I will not do that، أو بتنصحي العكس. يعني هون كمان as a doctor قد إيه فيك to influence أو عرفتي يعني to pass on how you see things to your patients
هلا أنا I
بهال
usually go أكيد depending on the age, depending on the complaint, but I usually go. I really spend a lot of time informing the patient about the pros and cons, and we try to get to a solution that is acceptable for both me and them. I learned with time, and that's something I didn't know when I had just started, working, that even if I think something is right, if the patient wants to do it, they're gonna do it. They're gonna go to somebody else and do it. So I don't do, as I said at the beginning, I don't do cosmetic procedures. There are a lot of things I don't do. But when they do eventually, let's say for isotretinoin for somebody who doesn't need it, which is the medication for acne, the very strong medication for acne. So there are, guidelines and rules and regulations and tests and stuff that need to be done. And this is a medication not to be given under certain, but some people, I'm talking about adolescents, they do come بيكون في حدا بالصف عم يستعمل الدواء and they want that medication. My role is to absolutely, give them all the, try to explain to them, أكيد, there is a certain way things are done. There are pros and cons to this medication. I absolutely would not, want you to take it, let's say, or you need it, okay? But sometimes, I end up, buying them a few months, but eventually, this is what they want to do, then I have to do it the safest possible way. I used to tell them no, and they would go and do it. They're gonna do it. So.
Okay, عنا سؤال كمان. Lately, I've noticed my mom's not satisfied with her appearance. She feels like she is late for her. She feels that she is late for her to take care of her skin, and she has wrinkles. Any advice of how I can help her?
This is it does depend on her, on the way she perceives. So I always give the example of my grandmother. My grandmother had never had anything done to her face. She had wrinkles, okay? She had the most beautiful face in the world. You would give me my grandmother's face and I think it's perfect. So to me, and so aging is a very subjective thing. If she is bothered by her wrinkles, there are things that she can do that are safe, that will decrease the wrinkles. And I mean, she can seek advice if she wants. بذات الوقت if she's doing it لأنه she has to أو لأنه عيب لك هيك صار شكلي أو لأنه other people are telling her to do it, then this is different. And if this stems from a real need for her to, if she's really bothered by the wrinkles, then it's easy. يعني في مليون شغلة نعملها يعني إن كان البوتوكس when there are a lot of good doctors out there doing very, very, elegant procedures. إن كان يعني عرفت كيف so and there are the simple things like a simple routine like stopping smoking, like not exposing yourself a lot to the sun. يعني هالأشياء صغيرة كمان بتساعد. So there are ways to take care of your skin that are simple and you don't need to go to the procedure.
جنان يعني you see differences مثلا بالsimple ways بالسكين كير روتين توقف الشمس بتشوفي فرق؟
أكيد. I'll tell you very simply. إذا بتلاحظي أنت في كتير صور إذا you go on the internet to look at difference between sun exposed and non-sun exposed skin, and there's a very famous picture of a trucker in England. You have half of his face that used to be, over 30 years constantly exposed to UV, and the other half wasn't, okay? And even, you can look under the skin, under the clothes. أوقات يعني بتشوفوا إنه skin that wasn't exposed to sun has a lot more elasticity, a lot less wrinkles, a lot less بقع. So definitely in your 20s getting exposed محروقة, getting constant exposure without يعني هيدي lizarding under the sun, هيدي definitely it hurts. Smoking definitely hurts, and all of these things are.
I can tell you, smoking, when you stop smoking, a month in, you can see a big difference on your face.
Yeah, the color of your face. the color of your face changes. Not to mention the smoker sign that you get around your lips. All of these كلهم بيأثروا عرفتي كيف. So doing these simple things هلا بالأخير يعني نحن in aging we have two things. We have what we call intrinsic aging, which is the way your genetics يعني basically. وعندك extrinsic, everything that's external that you can. So smoking and sun, living in a polluted area, this is something that you can't really help, but pollution does affect. Stress does affect. Okay, so your hair will whiten as you have stress. That's a real thing.
هلا
شيابونة is a real thing.
فيها هون يعني بسؤال الاودينس وين بتصير بالنسبة لإلك ريد فلاج إذا نحن اليوم عم نعطي كتير أهمية ولا لا؟ كيف نعرف كأدلتس إنه الأيجينج معطلنا هم وصار ريد فلاج عنا، وشو لازم ينعمل؟ في شيء بينعمل؟ do you يعني بتنصحي ثيرابي بهالكيس ولا لا؟ ولا what are things we can do؟
هلا red flags for any kind of anyway when we talk مثلا stress versus anxiety, when we talk everyday difficulties or hassle versus something becoming really a disorder, دايما بنجرب نشوف قد ايه عم نفكر بهذا الموضوع، قد ايه عم بيأثر على our ability نقدر نكفي الاشياء اللي بدنا نعملها. يعني شخص بيوعى in the morning اول شغله بيعملها بيطلع on the mirror، او اول شغله بيعملها طب كيف انا رح اقدر اعمل هذا الشيء تخبي، وبيطلع اذا في more red مثلا more white hair، هول they're red flags. وقت حدا مثلا بيضلوا عم بيفكر انه لا انا بعرف انه بهالعمر اذا بيطلع لي one wrinkle automatically خلص I need to make it disappear. Many people think that. بس اذا on the day عن جد that they saw their wrinkle اول شغله عملوها before trying مثلا other things, before questioning طب انه انا هيدا الشيء كيف عم بيأثر علي، ساعتها we can say that these are red flags. الاشخاص يلي مرات and we hear it يلي they're not satisfied with their body, they're not satisfied with the way that they look, they stop what they need to do, they take a day off work or they don't go out to where they were supposed to go, and they hide because they feel so uncomfortable. Wholly they're red flags, because the moment that we feel that any subject is not allowing us to continue with our day-to-day, the moment that we feel that a subject is whenever نحن مثلا نكون عم نشتغل وفجأة بنشوف حالنا عم نفكر بهذا الموضوع، عم نكون عم نحكي مع حدا and we zone out لأن عم نفكر بهالموضوع، wholly they're red flags. This is when we realize إنه لا لحظة there is something that I need to think about لأنه كتير عم بيأثر علي هذا الموضوع. And what we can do about it، أول شغلة أهم شغلة is to realize that this is a thing, and to realize that يمكن there is something that we can do, and there are many options. It's not necessarily therapy, sometimes just realizing it ونحن asking ourselves the question إنه طب هيدا الشيء قد إيه عم بيأثر علي؟ كيف عم بيأثر علي؟ هل أنا مزعوجة أو لا في حدا بلش يحكينا عن الموضوع سو أنا عم بنزعج؟ هل أنا عم بحس إنه عم بيأثر على شغلي؟ So all of these questions, the moment that we're starting to think about it, we might put a stop to it, we might think of all of the alternatives without necessarily needing therapy. We refer therapy وقت ما نحس إنه despite that من بعد ما يمكن أصحابنا ضولنا عن الموضوع عم بيقولوا لا إنه since when do you feel هالقد taken by it، طب let's try to stop. وقت أهلنا بيحكونا and we feel إنه we're not managing و it's taking too much of our everyday، ساعتها يمكن therapy could also be a place to really explore what it means to us, and this idea of شو يعني a wrinkle، شو يعني white hair، ليه أنا بدي أغير هيدا الشيء بوجهي، ليه مثلا at 13 14 15 what does it mean إنه أقدر أعمل laser or others. This is where therapy could be helpful.
Okay. جينان كمان عنا سؤال. What is allowed or good for our teens to do for their skin؟ يعني اليوم حكيتي عن أكني، حكيتي عن هل لازم الأهل يقعدوا مع الولاد؟ هذا سؤال يعني أنا عم بدير على سؤال الأودينس.
لا I think you know عرفت I think sorry I think these are important questions. بس الكلمة allowed حبيتها إنه لأنه effectivement as a parent you want to know what you can or cannot say yes to when it comes to your teen. I would say anything. هلا let's talk about real danger عرفتوا كيف إنه أنا ما في like dangerous behaviors unless إذا عم نحكي مثلا مش عم نحكي drugs and stuff like that هيدا it's peers. بس أنا I would say let's stay away يعني solarium. Okay, so stuff like that. So the other day I talked on my blog about gelish on the يعني these are things that can damage on the long run. يعني these are, you know, things you do when you're a teenager, and then when you're 40 or 50 or you say يعني يا ريت ما حدا يا ريت حدا قال لي ما اعمل هالشيء. So these are things that I wouldn't allow. Okay, but explain why. It's just like you do يعني I know it's difficult. هلا I don't know if my 3-year-old I can compare her to an adolescent, but sometimes it does feel like بيسموها teenagers أصلا. But I do feel I don't have experience, you know, with my own adolescents. My children are still young, but I'm honestly I mean afraid of it. But I do have a feeling that when you explain things and when you responsibilize the person, and when you treat them as a person and as a whole, يعني, even children, even like really young children, they don't like to be talked to as children. So when you explain to them that in a very, you know, clear, very way, usually they will absolutely, you know, respond. I think you agree, Mahek, Leo?
And I want to add to that. I think definitely explaining is very important. Lano, as you mentioned, when we tell something, when we tell an adolescent no, when we tell them that something is not allowed, بدون ما نفسر مع the approach إنه أنا بعرف أكتر, you're going to have somebody who shuts down. So it's very important to explain, keeping in mind that nowadays a parent or عن جد are struggling because يمكن هن they're explaining, هن they have their own way of seeing things and viewing things, but then everybody else around in their friends group is doing the opposite. So يمكن في أهل فسروا لأولادهم إنه مثلا أنا I don't want you to do this or that أو ما بدي جلش or whatever solarium اللي هي, بس everybody else in the peer group is doing. So كل أصحاب هالبنت أو هالصبي عم يعملوا هيدا الشيء. So بيصير في clash أكبر. So I think هون my point is this is bound to happen. رح يضر في الادolescent رح يجوا لكم بس انه اصحابي كلهم عم بيعملوا انا I don't want to feel left out. طب انه ليه؟ So as much as possible ضلكم عم بتفسروا لهم وانتوا كمان تعرفوا, and I agree انه allow is a very important thing. انتوا تقدروا تعرفوا امتين فيكم تقولوا طب اوكي مرة بس أو هيدا الشيء أوكي أو خلينا نلاقي an alternative. دايما وقت بتعطوا للولد or للadolescent an alternative, what else can you do? This will make a big difference. It doesn't mean it will work every time, but it's very important to do that لأنه مرات كتير عم يصير في clash between نحن شو بدنا كعائلة وباقي الأصحاب شو عم بيعملوا خاصة in adolescence.
Hey, and أنا كمان هون sorry في شغلة كمان I think I don't want to. So أنا إذا بترجعي لي أكيد solarium would be something that's an absolute no. And I know إنه challenge كمان for the youth.
حتى للأدلت جنان عنا سؤال إنه
yes absolutely. solarium أصلا you know مثلا in the UK they're moving towards a ban. There's an absolute كمان لأنه they are so it's UVA is absolutely linked to skin cancer. The sun as well, guys. So أنا for me, you know, as يعني أنا for me donc في شغلة هي إنه كمان ما بدنا نبنك العالم يعني let's be nuanced. Okay, so إذا هلا أنا صراحة سولاريوم إذا تقولي لي حتى مرة I would not. أوكي بس إنه إذا مش إنه يصير مشكل نهبط البيت نبطل نحكي مع بعضنا خلص يعني عرفتك مش إنه يعني there's a point I think where after you've explained everything you need to let the person make their mistake up to a certain level. I'm not saying going to solarium every single week, and I'm saying doing anyway. It's a very tricky thing, and I think Kamena being rigid when it comes to being a doctor, being rigid with the parent is putting an extra pressure on the parent. لأنه I'm putting myself in their shoes يعني حرام. So when it comes to allowing, really we look at danger things. هلا الاشياء مثل so بيجوا كتير انه they want a soap for their face, and definitely this is okay, you know, small routines, things that make them feel like they're growing up or they're taking care of themselves, and that's good implementing this at this age. But when you start feeling that they're, you know, obsessing over, you know, their appearance, their routine, or then that's where it's a red flag, I think, to me. ما بعرف انت بيا. I'm sure that this is as well.
100%. يعني sometimes we see it عند الولاد عند الادolescents إنه لا today I couldn't do this أو لا يمكن ما فينا نتأخر لأنه هلا it's the time I need to have my full whatever half hour اللي هي. So the moment that you feel that الولد or the adolescents or حتى نحن as adults we're becoming inflexible in changing sometimes our routine, this is definitely a red flag.
اوكي
By the way,
هلا
ما لازم عملت parenthesis صغيرة بس Sandra, I would love to say this يعني just like this once. I think all the dermatologists are going to scream at me. في شغلة كتير مهمة. لأنه I have a lot of patients coming in with this guilt, you know. They come in there like, I haven't done a facial routine. I'm, you know, in like years or like guilty. It's like كأنه بحس حالي يعني like they're coming to confessions or something. Guys, it's okay. Like if you haven't eaten for years, that's an issue, you know. As if you haven't done a facial routine, it's fine. هيدي كماليات عرفتوا كيف. If you can do them, if you have the means to buy creams, if you have the time, you know, new moms, thank you for waking up in the morning and brushing your teeth. ما بدي أكتر من هيك يعني. وما تنسوا تشربوا مي عرفتوا كيف. And that's all, you know, just putting يعني having this, you have to have a facial routine. Guys, عيشوا, okay? If you have the space in your life to introduce something like a facial routine, okay? I'm a dermatologist. I had like half of my routine دي مفروض انه مش مفروض انه that I've planned for myself. Like half of the time I don't do it لانه شو لانه هلا it's an exception seeing me talking at 9 p.m. يعني عادة أنا بكون نايمة هلا يعني I had a coffee in the afternoon, that's why I'm awake بس انه a big one.
صراحة بس ريفرشنج. بس عندي كتير أسئلة. اوكي what about Botox as early as 18؟ وهلا كتير في concept. أنا عم زيد على السؤال. اوكي هم سأل what about Botox at 18 وأنا عم زيد إنه في هالconcept تبع prevention، إنه نحن لازم لأنه ما يصير إفكت، وإذا ما لحقتي حالك أكلت الضرب لأنه بعدين
راحت
رح يطلع
عليكي راحت عليكي you're gonna have wrinkles. إيه.
So what do you think about that?
I need to breathe through it. Yeah. هلا ليكي خلينا let me give you I'm a non-judgmental answer and non you know an answer that's واضح. أول شيء, what is Botox? Okay, Botox is a molecule that we inject. It's actually taken from botulism, which is it's one of the deadliest actually things to catch. It's a it blocks the neural transmission, okay, when it comes to your muscles, and it stops your muscles from moving. Okay. It's meant to stop what we call kinetic wrinkles, or you know, or expression wrinkles. So when you do this, when you're angry, when you do this, when you smile, and when you do this. So all of these Botox is meant to attenuate them in a way for the skin not to get, you know, it's like a line, okay, on the long run. Okay, so I think the studies are, you know, late 20s, early 30s when you want to prevent lines from ever forming. And if they do them صراحة, because when you stop a muscle from working with time, it's going to atrophy. So it's going to become weaker and weaker and weaker, okay? And so this is the whole idea behind, you know, doing what we call preventative Botox. Again, I go back to what is wrong with wrinkles, okay? So why are wrinkles the enemy, okay? If wrinkles are the enemy, okay, so if wrinkles are the enemy and you cannot tolerate having wrinkles, then best practice would be, yes, I guess, going for preventative Botox. يعني إذا هيدا اللي أنت you can, but wrinkles are part of life, okay? Wrinkles are part of growing old, and if you're lucky enough to grow enough to get wrinkles, okay, then I mean, I wish that for you, honestly. I wish that for you to grow enough to get wrinkles, okay? Some people don't grow enough to get wrinkles, okay? So هلا هون it comes back to يعني Pia, I want to يعني this is where it comes back to the fear of aging. So why are we afraid of aging? Why is there a multi-billion-dollar industry behind aging? I think يعني مثل ما قلت بالأول, I think we're just afraid of death. Honestly, we're afraid to die.
It doesn't remove it. It doesn't make it, and it doesn't make it go away. It doesn't make it, you know, further away in terms of our lifetime. If it was meant to be at this age, it will be at this age, you know, with or without wrinkles. And I think this is what's difficult. We always try to control. We always try to say, "Khalas, I'm not seeing it, so I'm not thinking about it because I'm not seeing it. I'm pushing this thought away. Death is still far away. But to go back to your point, I think also something to take into consideration, like you were saying, when you remove the wrinkles, you're removing facial expressions. Yani, imagine you're a mom to be, or you want to be a mom, and you're doing potentially preventive Botox. Your kids might not necessarily be able to read your nonverbal expression as they would if you did have that small line or these small lines. So there's also that to take into account. Some people know they don't want to age, they don't like wrinkles, fine. But I think it's about asking yourself other questions. How else would it affect you later on? What other aspects of your life is it affecting? Maybe at 18, you're not thinking about that. It's still too far off. But this is where the role of parents comes in. Let's try to talk about it, to discuss it, and to think about the good and maybe the not so good potential consequences.
Yeah,
So I think
link to yes, go ahead.
أنا Sandra, I want to ask, so it's just, there are two things I wanted to say about Botox. في شغلتين. One, we know that when somebody is feeling down, if you tell them to smile, okay, this can actually have an effect on the way that they, so facial expressions do actually affect the way we feel, okay? This is why a lot of people, okay, do the frown, okay, because it does apparently decrease their anger or decrease their negative feelings. Another thing that has been now, apparently there are a few studies, is that you're less able to read other people's expression when you've had Botox, apparently. So because you mirror the other person.
Exactly.
So it's so interesting. For me, it's super interesting. But I think when it comes to parents and Botox parents and their children not being able to have, a proper this mirroring, but so this is very interesting. Actually, it would be an interesting study. يلا Pia. Let's do it.
يا تهيأ على الكومنت اللي حطيتيه. Is it linked؟ هل هي بس fear of dying ولا كمان فيها هيك less seduction إذا اليوم نحن ما كنا هالقد young، إنه خصوصي بمجتمعاتنا هلا where there is a big importance على staying alive, seducing.
Exactly. That goes back to what you were saying before. It's this idea of what do we understand by being young? Qu'est-ce qui n'est non dit? What don't we say? When we say being young, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? You have active, energetic, there's still so many things that you can do. People perceive you as having this charisma. So with aging, people think, and it's not necessarily the case, people think that you're losing all of these qualities. And it's not necessarily the case. You can keep your charisma even if your face is aging, even if you have wrinkles. You can stay active with a healthy lifestyle, even if your face and your body are aging. So I think it's really about what society, I'm not talking just Lebanon, in general, how society understands being young and what's implied in getting old. And there were so many studies also done a while back about, who do you think is more attractive, youth or people who are a bit older, who are more likely to trust or to go to if you want help or if you want advice. So there are a few things that we go to kind of older people, depending, for example, it's wisdom, but anything else that has to do with power, who would you listen to, and these kind of things, especially when we're talking about working, at work and leadership and all of these expectations, the way that you look and what you're projecting to others, which is the expectation of youth, this is what plays a role as well.
alright. عنا سؤال كمان عن sorry, just give me a second. And all of these expectations. Beach time soon. Any risk, short or long term, from repetitive laser treatment for the bikini area?
Zero. No. The only risk I mean, if we're talking cancer, it's a different. So إذا بدكم شي نهار نعمل skin cancer awareness, بس like a very, very like ملخص skin cancer. You have several, types of waves that you get from the sun, wavelength, we call type of rays إذا بدكم, that you get from the sun that cause skin cancer. Specifically, the ultraviolet light. You have UVA and UVB. Okay, so these are not found in laser hair removal. So laser hair removal does not give you skin cancer. One thing that laser hair removal can do is that you can get burnt. Okay, so what absorbs the laser, okay, is the pigment, and the pigment is found. So the pigment means the color. Okay, so the color is found in the skin and in the hair. So if you are tanned and you're trying to remove the hair in the middle of summer, then your skin can burn. Okay, and this is why, you know, removing hair on the bikini area, I mean, I don't know if they're talking about the pubic area. On the bikini area, usually this is not an exposed area, so I guess it's fine. But on the apparent area where you get a tan, then that's not a good idea in the summer. Well.
عندي comment تاني. I do Botox in secret. Even my husband doesn't.
Why in secret? Why in secret?
When people ask me, I don't say. Is
Yeah,
that
I mean,
okay?
is that okay? كمان is that okay? Everything is relative. And I think secrecy comes with shame, and shame is the lack of love. And why are you feeling ashamed about that? عرفتي كيف? So that's كمان an important question to ask yourself. هلا that's where I'm saying هلا ما كمان I don't want this talk to come out as no, you should feel ashamed of yourself for going for Botox. Not at all. Okay, and this is where, you know, people, you know, when they come for a consultation as anti-aging لعندي, and you feel that they're مستحيين يسألوني عن البوتوكس والfillers and everything else that they can do. These are safe procedures. There are a lot of people who know how to do them and who do them very well. And if you're in safe hands, then you can have a good result. And, you know, what's beautiful to me may not be beautiful to you, and what's beautiful to you may not be beautiful to me. But the secrecy tells me that maybe, so definitely Pia, I think, will delve into it a bit more. But that tells me that somewhere there is shame, and shame is always, I think, a red flag when it comes to therapists.
Shame but also ما بعرف إذا this person is worried about what your husband might think about that. And I think, you know, if this is something that you felt you needed to do or you wanted to do, I think it's very important to talk about it with your close one, with your husband, to talk about this process of aging that's bothering you and worrying you, because it's part of it. It's being there for one another anyway. So I think it's worth exploring that as well, and that there's no shame whatsoever. If you feel that this is the way to go, if you don't want some of the kind of signs of aging to show, then fine. And this is what we were saying. It's really about what works for you. But نحن يمكن we're focusing a bit more on the red flags just to make sure that people are fully convinced that this is something that they want to do, مش that they're expected to do to project a specific image, or because they want to kind of, you know, keep these attributes that come with youth. So I think بالعكس, if you're hiding it, I think it's worth exploring what's making you feel this way. Is it about you? Is it about your relationship? Because I think that this will bring you such a relief at some point to be able to share it with the people, because, you know, it takes so much effort to hide things. So I think it's worth exploring that.
I absolutely agree. And so there is, you know, there was a poll that one of my colleagues did on her page a few days ago, is does your husband or does your boyfriend like for you to be Botoxed, or يعني, do they like cosmetic procedures? And so last time I checked, the poll was like half of them said yes, half of them said no. So there are also, you know, some men who have a preference for women to be, you know, to have cosmetic procedures. So Kamina, going into that thing where you're getting cosmetic procedures for somebody else, for your husband, I mean, that's also something that you don't want. بس يعني بذات الوقت, if you want to have a cosmetic procedure but your husband doesn't want you to, that's also an issue. I mean, if that's, you know, I think مثل ما قلتي, discussing it together and having an open conversation, at the end of the day, it's your body and your decision.
Absolutely.
100%.
رح ناخده عن البوتوكس والبيوتي بعدين شوي, نعطي وقت للستريس و how it shows on the skin. It's an important topic also. I'm afraid to look old at work. So I work in media, and to be considered aging. So هون كمان جنان يعني في professions خصوصي بالميديا, يمكن حتى in the workforce, women are يعني already عندهم struggles إنه هي اليوم she's in the workforce, يعني في عليها إنه مثل pressure to perform أكتر من غيرها, يمكن بالsociety تبعنا زيادة عن هيك إنه كبيرة بالعمر, she's maybe it's time for her to get replaced. عم بتشوفي شيء these kinds of concerns وقت بيجوا لعندك البيشنتس؟
So definitely قصة الageism شغلة كتير مهمة, and I think that this is something that's people get discriminated against when they age, and surtout, and you have some professions where actually, me, when I started out as a dermatologist, I mean, they still go into my clinic and say, زغطوا أنه like صغيرة, like أنه لا, I just don't trust you because you're not old enough for me to trust you. And some professions أكيد, like media, like acting, like all of that. So definitely you get less roles, you get less less chances. بس بذات الوقت, and I understand where she's coming from, and if she feels that this is really something that's going to affect the jobs she's going to get, or the opportunities that she's going to get, then definitely, I mean, مثل ما قلت لك, there are solutions. She can explore them. She can see what she's comfortable with, trying or not. I'm going to give you the example of a few, stars that have undergone, Botox. I mean, cosmetic procedures, and definitely you feel that something is off. I mean, ما بعرف, at one point, Renee Zellweger, when she had a lot of work done on her face, and then she lost she went back to being normal. I mean, so you feel it, you see it. It's not something that goes unnoticed when you're in that type of when you do these procedures. ما في شيء بيقطع هيك هالقد انه nothing is going to turn back time and go back. You're never going to go back to being 20. You're going to go to being like whatever your age is, but with something that's a little bit like Anna for me, I mean, something that's a bit off.
And I
Sorry,
think this is
I shouldn't have said that, maybe.
No, but I think this is where we were talking about red flags. I think he could just, if you want to wrap up, Sandra, this part of the conversation, but I think this is where the red flags come. The fact that you're always trying because you feel that it didn't work. It's changing, your body's changing, you're aging. So what was good maybe a month ago, maybe next year is not going to be the same. You're not going to look at yourself the same way, and it's going to affect you, and it's going to make you say, okay, let me try one more time. And this is where maybe you start realizing that it is not natural. And this is where sometimes it's a red flag, because people cannot stop anymore, always searching for a better look in their eyes.
Just كمان Anna, my last thing that I wanted to say is that, every age has their, their positive, side and their negative side. But I guess fully, the human experience and fully experiencing each age. So أنا لو بتملكينا الدنيا, I would not go back to being 18, honestly, or 25 for that matter. Yeah, like every age you learn things, you grow, and so I think this constant fight against your body, against your skin, against yourself, against time, which is, the one thing you can't fight against time. The one, it gets into the way of you living your life fully, because the way you're going to think about it is when you're 80, I mean, you're going to look back at your life, and are you going to regret, spending this much energy and time on this? So that's kind of the way I look at it, and from my own point of view. I may be, this is, again, it's my own point of view. If anybody wants to get anything done, honestly, there are so many ways to do it. So بس بتصور قطعت لهم برزقهم الليلة. I'm gonna get banned. I can't show my face anywhere.
That's what we like when choosing to co-host with you, لأنه you say things the way they are بالعكس, and يعني you're always on هيك إنه بتحطي safety و safety first, so this is very important قبل كل شيء. to هيك تنعطي شوية وقت, we're running out of time وبعد عنا كم سؤال, so just to also frame the conversation شوي على الستريس. قديش اليوم والحياة عندها دكتور جنان على the way we look. حكيت شوي عن السكين تبعنا, we age faster if we're stressed. What other عم بتشوفي أكتر وأكتر conditions من وراء الستريس؟
So like شو أنا this is a very this is a very important topic. بمعنى إنه كلمة stress, some people think that it's something that's just, in your brain, and it's something that's imaginary, something that, it's not real. It's just stress, Stress is a real physical change that happens in your body as a response to perceived danger or actual danger. Okay, so let's say if you would run into a lion, okay, your heart is going to start beating, your pupils are going to get so basically, was it dilated or just pinpoint? Anyway, you're going to start sweating, your blood pressure is going to go up, and this is an acute stress response. It's called a flight or fight reaction. Okay, so in our life, when you wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. and you need to have 10 minutes for the kids to be in the autocar, and you forgot to pack their lunch, and you're running, and they won't brush their teeth, and you're just throwing them in the bus, and then you have to go back up and not be late for work, and so this is constant, like it's not a lion but a deadline can be a lion for some people, or your work stress, and not knowing what to all of these small things in life, they make your body function at a level of stress all the time. Okay, so this has an effect on your body. It has an effect on your body, and when it comes to skin, we have a whole bunch of diseases that we call psychosomatic illnesses. And these psychosomatic illnesses are physical illnesses that get affected by stress and by the way that by your mental health. Okay, the most common psychosomatic illnesses are acne, rosacea, psoriasis, urticaria, eczema. Let's say حتى هلا vitiligo, بس انه ايه vitiligo, ثعلبه, alopecia areata. هودي اصلا like most of the people مثلا اللي بيجوا with ثعلبه بيقولوا لك نقزه واجوا, يعني they got really scared and then they had a loss of hair. Psoriasis, the same thing, نقزه, okay, they got really stressed out. Or اصلا they will all of your patients, and all of my patients will tell you that على stress بيزيد. Okay, and so هون أنا, for me, an intrinsic part of treating these patients is helping them find out good ways to cope with stress. Okay, and some people, and I really try to explain this to my patients, and I think that okay, it's impossible to avoid stress altogether, but having healthy coping mechanisms can help deal with can help manage these situations. So there you go.
I think that's a very important point, just to add to that, because it's very difficult to explain that to people in our culture. People cannot really understand this idea of how is stress affecting me physically. We all know the normal, okay, when I'm stressed out, مثلا بيجاني بطني طلعاني نفسي, people feel that. But for the more extreme, kind of like losing hair or eczema, people don't realize that it could be just due to stress. This is what we hear, بس طلعت stress, طب what do I do with it now? And it's so important to realize that yes, stress will affect you this way, and it's about figuring out what has changed in your life, what has been causing stress. يمكن yes بنسميها نقزة نحن in our culture, but let's try to explore where it's coming from. Where is this stress coming from? How can I cope with it? I cannot remove it, but what can I do about it to deal with it in a healthier way that would not be affecting my body as much?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's well established now.
Exactly.
So it's not, but I think just focusing on قصة التابو اللي هي basically stress is it's not in your head, it's a physical thing. So definitely trying to really manage it and manage your anxiety, and one thing in these disorders, and this is where I try, and my patients know, I try to send them as much as possible, and therapists and people who can help them deal with the stress of having a chronic illness. Let's say psoriasis, let's say eczema. These are things that are going to stay there. They're gonna, they can, with new medications that we have, we can absolutely control them, but they do have an impact on the way on the stress levels of people. If you don't sleep well because of your eczema, and this will affect the stress, and stress will increase, and eczema will increase. So it's a vicious cycle. So definitely, I always ask them to, to consult with a therapist if they feel that things have become, overwhelming and out of hand. And it absolutely helps 100% of the time when they listen to me. And
reversible شيء يعني if they can deal with their stress هل conditions بيروحوا ولا this is something that doesn't go away, but you just learn how to manage it?
So just for all of them, everything I mentioned, and hatta acne, okay? So these are chronic conditions. Chronic conditions means that your skin is programmed to react in this way under certain stressors. Let's say you have psoriasis. You have a genetic background that allows your skin to, when faced with a particular trigger, it will react in this way and give you psoriasis, plaques. Can you stop having psoriasis plaques? Absolutely. But will you always have this predisposition? Absolutely. You see, so I can control your psoriasis, but your skin will always be programmed to have psoriasis because it's in your genetic makeup. You see, so that's why we call them chronic. And for acne, it's a special situation. We used to say when my professors used to say, they didn't even, I think, treat acne unless it was a very severe acne. They would tell them, at 18, it's going to go away. Now things have changed. It has to do with our diet, with pollution, with things that we're applying on our faces. We're seeing it well into the 20s, 30s, 40s, hatta perimenopausal. So acne is no longer something that goes away at the age of 18. So voila. But that's why we're calling it chronic. And voila.
So we have the predisposition. Our body will react this way, but the more we learn some strategies to control stress, where decreases the chances of our body reacting this way, because we're teaching it to regulate differently or quicker, so that the reaction is different.
So Hona, I want to add a small nuance as well. So one of the triggers is stress, okay? But you do have other triggers. Okay, let's say a viral infection, a drug that you take, a surgery, a chemical that you may be exposed to, a vaccine. So all of these are also triggers, okay? And so stress is a trigger, but it's not the only trigger there. So there you go. So Kamina, not to oversimplify and to sound like that's the only thing. There are several things that can affect, and which is why it's important, for your doctor to get a full history, to try to get to the bottom of when it started and why did it start. For example, if it got worse with a particular medication, then changing the medication definitely will help. But stress, it's always a good. It's good to know how to deal with your stress, and definitely we do see it in our patients that they do tend to manage their flares better when they learn how to manage their stress.
All right. نحن we're wrapping up. خلص الوقت. فيها هيك last closing notes الناس اللي عم تسمعنا. خصوصي موضوعنا اليوم حكينا بكذا facet لإله beauty, adolescents و their views on beauty. حكينا شوي كمان stress, the effect on the body. حكينا كمان red flags. So هيك what would be key takeaway? three things اليوم تنصح الأودينس يعملون هيك all around the myth of beauty and stress وكيف عم بتأثر على حياتنا.
The main thing عن جد بدي ارجع عيدها نحن we're not talking about right and wrong. عن جد the whole point was to really help people pay more attention to why they're deciding to take specific decisions. So this idea of how do we perceive ourselves and how do we understand being young? What does it mean to us? Because when you understand this, it might help you really figure out why or how much attention you're paying to signs of aging and how much it's taking your everyday life. Hey, it's important. Second thing, when we're talking about kids and adolescents, it's really important to make sure that we're hearing them, seeing them, and explaining things to them, so that if we're willing to allow them some kind of things that we know the consequences of it, we have talked to them about it, and then they're not just following the trend, that it's really something that they're convinced of, that you're convinced of. I think that's as difficult as it is, that's very important. And the third thing, it relates to the last point that we were talking about. Just always remember that yes, stress will affect your body and how your body is reacting, and it's very important always. And I love it that nowadays we have more collaborations between doctors and psychologists. So a lot of the time نحن as psychologists, we're referring to doctors, please make sure that there's nothing physical وبعدين نرجعوا لعندها if it's something psychological, and vice versa. Lots of times doctor will refer to us and no, it's something that's stress related that's affecting the body. So I think these are the three important points from my side.
جنان قلتي شغلة كتير حلوة إنه some people أنا this stuck to me إنه some people عن جد نيالهم إذا they get to a point where they age. We love that. So كمان key takeaways من عندك. You're coming from من profession تبع الجمال, من professional.
So I'm gonna give you my key takeaways بلا كهرباء.
In the dark.
In the dark. So منيح مراحل الكونكسيون. So أنا so yeah, it's gonna be very very dramatic if the light comes back on. Okay, and so no, like yeah, everything that Pia said, there you go. Very dramatic.
Go ahead.
So definitely everything that Pia said. I want to you know just الفت النظر للعالم إنه when they think about something that they want to change in their appearance, let them think really hard about whether or not this is something that they really want versus something that is dictated by somebody else. And if it is dictated by somebody else, where does this come from? Okay, and why should they accept things, just because, without questioning. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second of all, just if you excuse me for a second, excuse me. So second of all, I think really, to me, it is philosophical. I think it's too bad to live your life afraid of aging, because time is gonna pass. It's the only constant thing. We all know that we're going through time, in a linear fashion. There's no going back. There are multiple dimensions. There is black matter, black energy, actual energy. There are so many things. Okay, but we know one thing about time is that it goes forward. Okay, and there's gonna come a day where we're not gonna be here anymore. And when we look back on that day, what do we want to remember? Okay, do we want to remember fighting against our body and the nature? And fighting against our nature, or do we just want to remember, having a good? I mean, this is Anjad Anna. To me, this is, I think, what makes me. It's too bad to go through life like that. It's really too bad, and this is where I think recognizing this suffering in patients, not. So we didn't talk about BDD, and I wish we had, but it's okay, maybe another time. But people who have the psychological suffering that comes with these perceived flaws, okay, on the face or in the body, that can ruin somebody's life and prevent them from leading a full and productive life. This is I hope as much as possible that we can make a difference for people like that, not by giving them an acne cream, but by really getting them the help they need, which is with somebody like Pia. So and everything that Pia said, when it comes to psychosomatics and stuff.
Thank you so much على هيك رجعتينا إنه you reminded us of really how beautiful life is, how beautiful it is to enjoy every moment ونعيشها. whether we want to look beautiful أكتر مما نحن ولا لا, it doesn't matter. المهم إنه to live a full life مثل ما قلتي, and to seek help when we need help, ونعرف إنه we need help. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. يعني we had a lot of questions من ال audience. You can watch the replay ورح تنحط كمان على يوتيوب. جنان ما توقفي شغلك يعني always stay vocal, always stay دايما
رح حاول. I might need to clone myself.
حتى لو
اللي فترة مش عاملة post, you reminded me.
community زعلت منك. Just always tell us what's good. Pia will be seeing you also in other sessions أكيد. وجنان إن شاء الله كمان we can do more round tables together تنوعي أكتر على
hopefully
أهمية
بنحكي ساعتها على
PDD. Yes. Thank you so much.
100%. Thank you.
Have a lovely evening. Thank you very much. وسوري على ال interruptions.
Part of life.
Thank you.
Yeah, part of life. There you go.
Exactly.
يلا. Have a lovely evening. Thank you so
Bye,
much for having
everybody.
me.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Good night.